Do you believe in miracles? We got Fizzle in the house. Fizzle, what's good, man? Fizzle, glad to have you here.
Let's go. This the South Harmon podcast. Glad you here today. Hit that Patreon link if you here to stay. Dynasty best ball, that's my favorite way. 40 chess trade show, let's make a trade today or check a AMA. You know Adam at the ATM. Mike always in the building, he gon' stay with him. They gon' start every show off with their own trade. Fantasy's a big ocean, they made their own wave. Make sure you tapping in Tuesdays and Saturdays. Tuesday night, Saturday morning, ain't no better way. Hit that notification bell when the news break. Go subscribe right now, don't get the news late. Destination Devi, that's the team. Dynasty Football, man, that's my favorite thing. I remember Biggie said it was all a dream. Now people watching on their phones and computer screens. Welcome to the team. Let's start the show.
Welcome everybody back to America's Game, episode number 2. I am your host Eric Vanek, and you can find me on Twitter at Eric Vanek NFL, and you can also follow the podcast Twitter at America's Game Pod. This week, once again, I'm joined by Mike. Mike, what's going on, man? How you doing?
What's up, man? No Adam this week, but that's fine. We talked about when we were doing this podcast. I know doing solo podcasts sucks, so you might swing one every now and then, but I'm always down to hop on and bullshit about whatever we can come up with in the space. So back again, second week. YouTube didn't cancel this one the first time. The streaming services, the podcast services didn't cancel it, so let's do two.
Yeah, let's do.
I gotta say, the amount of people, right? Like I got the admin to the YouTube, and the amount of people who reached out with comments. So glad that you're back, buddy. Thanks for agreeing to do this, to resurrect America's Game, because the people were thirsty, man. They were thirsty for some Erics, so it's good that we can keep this going every single week.
Yeah, absolutely. I felt like the Undertaker rising up, man. That's how I felt. So, no, I had a lot of people compliment, said, man, they were happy the show's back. Happy that it's on South Harmon's, podcast channel. Loving that as well. So I'm glad to be back. And just speaking of that, yeah, make sure you guys follow the podcast. It's going to be on South Harmon Dynasty Football. You just type that into your podcast, whatever you use. I used Overcast. If you use Apple Podcast, Google, whatever you want to use. Just make sure you type that in there. You can follow the show there. Every Thursday, you're going to get America's Game on there. So make sure you do that. We're also going to have this live on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, hello, YouTube people. And every Thursday evening, it'll come out on YouTube. Adam's going to do some video editing and stuff to get it all right for YouTube. But once he does that, it'll be up on Thursday evenings if you want to consume this podcast on video on YouTube. So go ahead and do that. Last thing I want to mention, too, make sure you guys check out the South Harmon FF website, so southharmonff.com. We just dropped Mind Warp with Scott Connor and Adam. Great video series. I think I forget how many parts it is. This is like 6 or 8 parts or something like that.
Oh, there's 20-something.
20, okay. I thought it was only 6 or 8. But anyways.
Yeah, I've gotten through like 5 so far.
Okay. There you go. You're on your flight today out to...
That is the plan.
You can watch them. But yeah, check those out. I've heard nothing but amazing, good, positive feedback about that video series that Adam and Scott put out for everybody. Man, it's really cool to see that the WoRP tool and all this stuff that's come out within the last couple years, really took the mainstream with us last season with Scott bringing it up. Dynasty Barry, shout out to him. He's done some stuff with it. And then obviously Koopa took it to a whole new level with his WoRP tool. It's been really cool to kind of follow it, understand it, learn about it. So it's been awesome, man. I've been kind of trying to implement some of this stuff on my teams. I'm sure you have too. So yeah, if you're interested in getting that WoRP tool, learning about WoRP, obviously Koopa's WoRP tool, you can purchase it on the South Harmon Harmon website, and also the Mind Warp series. You guys can go ahead and purchase that video series, and you can listen to Adam and Scott really break down Warp for you and what it's all about, and just every intricacy you can think of about Warp. They explain it for you, so it's a great tool. So definitely worth checking out.
That Warp thing, right? You mentioned like you and Scott were talking about it last year, and it got me interested, and I kind of paid attention to it. Didn't give it the due diligence that it needed, right? Eric like didn't dive into it, and then Koopa comes up with this incredible tool. It makes it dummy proof for me, right? I get to click on it, put my league in, put my name in. All of a sudden, I got all these graphs that are league specific, and I'm going, oh man, well, I think I should do it this way, or I think I should do it this way. And one of the things about the Warp tool, people always asking, like, how do I use it or how do I implement it? Well, Scott and Adam, they took it to the next level because you're talking, 20 plus hours of content where they dive into everything. How you use it for this league, how you use it for this type of league, what to look at, where the flat tiers are. If you wanted to know exactly how to use it, those guys have taken it to the next level, and they talked about some stuff that even I didn't think about. And I'm only 5 episodes in. I hate to see when I get to 20 on this flight here today, where I'm at. I kind of expect, Eric, that there'll be a lot of trade offers this upcoming week when I'm in Canton here for the Fantasy Football Expo. I imagine I'll be going through all 30-some leagues going, oh, I can exploit Warp this way. We'll see if anybody else is paying attention.
Yeah, just for your sake, make sure you're doing that between the hours of like 9 a.m. to like 2 p.m. Don't be doing it anytime after like 5 p.m. to like 5 a.m. You might be a little...
That's when I make the best deals, right? That's what I always sell to, though.
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course. So the Fantasy Expo, man, that's coming up this week. Obviously, you're looking forward to that and everything.
I am over the moon excited about this. Get to meet a lot of people in the space, a lot of people who follow and rock with South Harmon patrons, Savage members. Those guys are going to be staying with us at the Airbnb. Scott, Dynasty Trades and 5 guys. And then, of course, all the content creators throughout the entire space, all the big ones. Man, Des Bryant is going to be there. Lisa Ann is going to be there. So just being able to interact with everybody in the space and meet some people that I can honestly say are lifelong friends, and we don't even live in the same spot. We just share the same type of passion. So getting together with everybody is going to be incredibly excited. I can't wait. It's about 3 hours now until I hop in the car, drive to the airport, and then get on an airplane. But tonight about 11 p.m., man, me and Adam will be bro hugging it out and having some booze together.
Nice. Yeah, man, that sounds like an awesome time. I wish I could go this year. I got so much real life stuff going on right now that I'm not able to attend, but maybe next year I'll be able to swing by, meet some people. But yeah, man, it sounds like an absolute blast. I hope you guys have a great time, stay safe, all that good stuff, and have a fucking blast, man. It's gonna be pretty cool. So,
we're gonna go hard. We're gonna go hard at the South Harmon school, the Airbnb that's actually a school.
Have a couple shots in honor of me.
I got you.
Maybe get a lap dancer too. No, I'm just kidding.
Don't worry about that.
All right. Anyway, so today I wanted to really kind of dive into these running back situations for each team. So kind of like a mini preview of our depth chart series that me and Scott usually had done in the past, but today it's just going to be really on the running backs, because I think it's really interesting right now to kind of look at these running back situations that maybe somebody can come in and help them, or who's doing good right now, who's not doing good right now, and kind of get a little bit of a preview of what's going on before we really start the preseason game starting here Thursday, I believe is the first game. Obviously we had the Hall of Fame game last week, and now we're really getting into it this week with every team going to be playing here over the next 4 days. So, yeah, I'm super excited for it. So, we'll start off here with the AFC East. And this one, honestly, is pretty easy. I think Buffalo usually only keeps... They had 4 last year at times, but I think they're really only going to keep 3. I think it's going to be James Cook. It's going to be Damian Harris. It's going to be Latavius Murray. They did sign Darrington Evans off the street after Nyheim Hines got hurt, so they could keep Evans. I'm not a big fan of Darrington Evans, but I would say, I'm sure you agree with me, probably James Cook and Damian Harris, Latavius Murray are probably the only 3 that you're going to want to keep from this team.
Yeah. I do so much best ball too, so like my threshold of running backs that I give a shit about is even less. Lat Murray wouldn't really make it for me in that one. I'd be highly interested in James Cook, of course, Damian Harris, of course, Latavius Murray, not so much. If I expand it to my lineup where, the Scott Connor approach, right, any RB on a 53, I'm interested in Latavius Murray. I think if something happens to Damian Harris, that's just a one-for-one plug, right? The hammer in a really good offense. Darrington Evans, though, like I'd have to do some mental gymnastics to be like, yeah, I should roster him in this lineup. Like I got to figure if we're going to do the any running back on a 50, there's probably another dude out there, right? that meets that criteria that I'd be more high on.
About 300 other dudes I'd rather have.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's actually a good point that you brought up. I mean, you're pretty much more of an expert with best ball stuff, and I think I'm more of a expert with when it comes to lineup leagues. And they're two totally different ways that you want to roster these players. Like Latavius Murray, probably not in a best ball. In a lineup league, yeah. So that's definitely interesting that we can bring up as we go along here. There's also been talk about Dalvin Cook possibly. I think that's kind of gone wayside now because Buffalo just really doesn't have the cap space to even entertain that, and Dalvin Cook wants way too much money. I don't think they're even in the market for like one of those big names that are still out there. But I think these top three are probably guys that you would be comfortable picking up and leaving on your roster right now.
Hypothetically, if they did though, like say they sign, it doesn't have to be Dalvin Cook, but say it's like Zeke or Leonard Fournette. They pick one of these guys up for cheap. Does that really just kind of put the kibosh to Damian Harris? Like I'm interested in Damian Harris for the fact that he fits a role that's different than what James Cook does really well, right? He's not that super explosive receiving back. He's more of that thunder, that hammer, that guy who's going to get a lot of the goal line work, which in Buffalo with Josh Allen, we know that is a little bit, it's not as appealing because you got a giant monster of a quarterback who likes to run it himself, but it's still got some use to it. Eric, if Zeke were to sign there, let's just say it's Ezekiel Elliott, does that put the damper on Damian Harris? Like, are you not as interested in rostering him or having him on your team because of that?
Yeah, absolutely. That would pretty much be the end of him. And they didn't even really sign Damian Harris for that much. I think he only got like $1.3 million for
it wasn't much. Yeah.
So, and everything that I've read in camp so far, that Harris and Murray are pretty much just being like short yardage guys, those tough yardage guys, a little bit in between the tackle stuff if they want to run that on first down. They're not going to be jamming James Cook up in the middle of the line 10 times a game.
Please, I hope not.
Yeah, that's not what they're going to do. So they're going to rely on Harris and Murray to both do that at times. I could see maybe 5 carries a piece a game for those guys and just kind of switch the roles until one of them really takes it over. So that's kind of what I would think is going to happen there. But yeah, if Zeke signed there, I think that means one of those guys is getting cut. Damian or Latavius would be my opinion on that one.
That's a good point. They'd probably hold on to like one of the shittier Darrington Evans types or one of these practice squad-ish type dudes and cut one of the veterans.
Right, exactly. All right, so on to Miami now. So this is an interesting one because they've been talked about maybe working on signing Dalvin Cook. I think that's still a possibility for this team to sign Dalvin Cook because, like you said last week, you're expecting Dalvin Cook to sign with the Jets. Well, he still hasn't signed with the Jets, and we're another week, after that. So he's still out there. But looking at Miami, Mostert, I think, is going to be the lead back right now from what I've read. Jeff Wilson's still there. Devin Achane, Salvin Ahmed, Myles Gaskin are really the top 5 for me right now there. One of those between Ahmed and Gaskin is probably going to get cut or traded. I don't see any of the other guys getting traded or cut or anything like that. But if Dalvin signs here, you might have to cut both Ahmed and Gaskin. And everything that I've read at practice so far, Gaskin has probably outplayed Ahmed. Gaskin is doing a little bit better. Achane is kind of just being used as a screen pass guy, swing passes, stuff like that, plays to get him out in space, doing a lot of receiving work. So I think that's what Achane's role is going to be this year. Sure, he's going to get a few carries here and there out of the backfield, but it's not going to be, anything's in the tens. If he gets 10 carries in a game this year, I'd be shocked. And then Mostert and Wilson probably had the same roles as they did last year. I thought Wilson was a little bit better than Mostert at times last year, but they still really like Mostert. Both those guys know this system as well. But if they sign Dalvin Cook, that's going to put a damper on. Like, I don't even. Sure, I'll have Mostert. I'll still hold on to Jeff Wilson, but I think Jeff Wilson kind of falls off the wayside there. I don't know if I'd really want him too much, but what would you feel like if Dalvin ended up here, and what do you think of these guys without Dalvin too?
I'd be petrified if Dalvin. Like, I like it from the Miami team point. Like, my dad's a giant Dolphins fan. I went on a Dolphins fan cruise with him earlier this year. He loves the Dolphins. It'd be great for the team. For fantasy purposes, though, I'd hate it. Like, I'd want Dalvin Cook, obviously. But after that, it's like, man, I can't make a case for Mostert. I can't make a case for Jeff Wilson. I could make a case for A-Chain on the youth and the name, and then those other two guys, like you said, Ahmed and Gaskin. Right now, as it stands where it is, I don't have a lot of interest in Gaskin or Ahmed just because this backfield is so deep. So even in those deep lineup leagues, I'm like, nah, I'm kind of good, man. Like, I don't think any one of those guys for me personally does anything to move the needle. Lineup leagues, I'm interested in rostering Mostert. I'm interested in rostering Jeff Wilson because, like you said last year, there was times where Jeff Wilson was very, very, very effective and put up a fair amount of fantasy points when Mostert was kind of banged up. So both of those guys, kind of seeing how it plays out. Lineup would be tough with Devon A-Chain. That's where the value kind of comes in. You got to do a lot of projecting. And I think this year, best case scenario, Eric, we're kind of looking like maybe James Cook's role from last year in Buffalo, who we just talked about. Probably not doing you a lot. Best ball leagues, I want a lot of Devon A-Chain, right? Because of that home run ability, the fact that he's going to have a role on the team. We just don't know how much it's going to be. But in best ball, I'm kind of interested in all three of those guys, Mostert, Wilson, A-Chain. Lineup, I'd be more interested in Wilson and Mostert, to be honest. Like, I roster some A-Chain in lineup leagues, but I don't feel good about it because I'm never going to know really when to start them unless something bad happens to the two guys in front of him. And if something bad happens to him, does he get more work that's more consistent that I can rely on? I don't think so, at least in his rookie year. Just a personal opinion. I think that's more of a long-term name play, or like kind of that guy who makes a splash play, and then you go, oh yeah, now's the time to move him, right? Like, people liked him a little bit coming in. Now he just made, a 80-yard touchdown run where he burnt the entire defense. Perfect. Let's see. Let me put him on the block and see if I can get somebody who's actually going to get a consistent workload. So that's where I'm at with these three guys.
Okay.
I do agree with you, though. Like, they bring anybody else in, like it's toast for Gaskin and Ahmed. Both of them are done. I think one of them's done for sure. They're not going to make it on the team, but we'll see after that.
I mean, I'm really a big fan of both Gaskin and Ahmed. I've had both of them on multiple teams, like both of them together. I've had to cut a couple just with roster construction right now. I still think one of them can end up somewhere else on one of these running back needy teams. Like, I know they just signed Marlon Mack, but if like Gaskin went to Arizona, I think Myles Gaskin's the RB2 in Arizona right now.
I can see that. Yep.
So I really, like holding on to these guys, but I understand that times like you got to cut somebody, and one of these guys might have to be your cuts, but I'm still interested in them. Mostert I do like, but he does get dinged up quite a bit too, so that makes me still interested in Jeff Wilson, especially in lineup leagues. Jeff Wilson has had some really good games the last couple years, in this system, and won you some weeks. So I think you got to still hold on to Jeff Wilson too. So, and I agree with everything you said on A-Chain. Like, that's kind of a guy you want in best ball. I don't have him too many lineup leagues, but when the hell am I going to start him? It's going to be really tough to even predict that. So
I think the appeal of Jeff Wilson, right? If you're just looking at A-Chain and Mostert, right, the big three that are there. The appeal of Jeff Wilson is he's just built so much differently than those other guys, right? More of that bigger running back where you go, yeah, we can give the ball 20 times to him and he's not going to break down. You brought up Raheem Mostert always getting banged up. Yeah, it's been a career thing, but we got to remember he's built more like Devon A-Chain in the end, right? That speed back and then that smaller back. Now he's been able to handle a workload, but he also gets his fair share at next. I think that's why I really like Jeff Wilson. And I've always kind of felt bad, whether it's lineup or best ball, just he feels like the safest one to roster for if I'm looking for production, just because he's so much different than the other two guys. Now, if they bring in a Dalvin Cook, that it's shit. It's done for him. Like, it's like, all right, you brought in another Jeff Wilson that's much better. I'm screwed. Like, all your Jeff Wilson shares go to zero and no one cares.
Yeah, for sure. All right, now looking at New England's running backfield. So Ramondre Stevenson, he's going to be the alpha here, the workhorse. You know, they've really taken it easy on him during camp so far, limiting his reps, which is exactly what they should do. And they're just going to be gearing up for him to have another 300 carry season. Hopefully he gets 50 catches. I think he had almost 60 catches last year or something like that. So I think Stevenson's set up for another big year. They have Ty Montgomery, who's hurt again already, another guy who's always hurt. But it seems like when he does practice, he has a role. Like, he's the receiving back right now for them. So I think you got to still remember Ty Montgomery's there. Best ball, definitely don't want to hold him. Lineup leagues, I've left him on waiver wires. I haven't really picked him up. I'm just not too interested. Pierre Strong Jr. and Kevin Harris, though, I have some shares of both of those players. I do like Pierre Strong a little bit more than I do Kevin Harris, so I've kept Pierre Strong. You know, I haven't really dropped him too many times. Kevin Harris, I've had to drop a couple times, though. I think this is a team that they got to look at another running back. If they can get Zeke or Fournette for cheap, I think these are one of the good landing spots. I know they've looked at Dalvin Cook too. They could sign Dalvin Cook. It wouldn't shock me. It's going to happen at some point. Dalvin's going to have to go to one of these teams, and this is definitely another one that's looked at him. Zeke, they've already brought in for a workout, so they know Zeke. They've been talking about bringing him in still. You know, Zeke would work well here. I don't think he would obviously cut into Stevenson a little bit, but not like Tony Pollard and Zeke, you know, how we're thinking. I think Stevenson would still be like the 60% guy. Zeke would maybe get, 25%, and then the rest would go to the other backs. So not too worried about it there, but lineup leagues, I'll hold on to Strong. Harris is borderline for me. I think in best ball, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Stevenson's the only guy I even want here.
Yeah, I got some Ty Montgomery in best ball leagues just because, the 35-man rosters and, you're at the bottom of it and you go, well, what if he's actually a little bit of a thing in a receiving down back? Like, he's worth a spot until I find somebody better, right? But he's more of a placeholder. It's not somebody I'm holding on to going like, yeah, I really need him. You're pretty much right. Rhino's the only one right now in this situation in a best ball league that's really worth a shit. I mean, kind of depending on your roster situation and how many people are in your league. Like, I think I roster Kevin Harris in the Royal Rumble, but it's just like you look at the waiver wire and it's going, who the hell else am I taking? Right? Like, it's New England. He's a bigger back. If they don't bring somebody else in, who's to say Bill Belichick doesn't give him, 10 touches, 15 touches at some point? You go, they should be going to Ramondre, but instead Kevin Harris is getting touches. Like, we've seen this shit before from him, so that's the only hope. But if he doesn't make the 53 and he's kind of that fringe guy, or he's on the practice squad, it'll tell you all you need to know. Just drop his ass. Same for Pierre Strong, same for Ty Montgomery. Ramondre's best ball league, the only one I'm interested in. Lineup league, even if Ty Montgomery's kind of a thing, I wouldn't want to roster him. I'm good. I might be holding on to some Pierre Strong and Kevin Harris as like deep taxi squad kind of guys, but that's about it for these dudes. And if Zeke came in, I don't think it really does anything to limit what I want from Ramondre. Same if like Leonard Fournette came in, I still view him in the same light. But I do agree, like, all it does is really just signal Pierre Strong, Kevin Harris. Cut him, don't need him, put him on the bench, because they kind of found their old crusty guy to just spell Ramondre when he needs it.
Yeah, for sure. Now looking at the New York Jets. So obviously Breece Hall is there. He's on PUP right now. He should be back within the next week or two, they said. So I'm not too worried about Breece Hall. It is a little bit weird. Like, Javonte Williams completely tore like 3 things, and he's back practicing healthy. And then Breece Hall, just an ACL, and he's still not doing anything. So it's just so weird. Like, these major injuries, how they affect each person. It's kind of fascinating, but I wish Breece would be out there kicking it and doing really good right now. Michael Carter, they still have Zonovan Knight, Israel Abanikanda, and Travis Dye, who they brought in off of UDFA. So right now, obviously Breece Hall's the man here. They're talking about bringing in Dalvin. We kind of talked about a little bit last week what Breece and Dalvin would do together and how we would view them. So we're not going to get too much into that. But if they brought in Dalvin, like, it's interesting to see who they would cut here. And from all the stuff that I've read, it would be between Michael Carter and Zonovan Knight who would get cut between those guys. And I think it's kind of might be Michael Carter because Zonovan Knight has been the best running back at camp so far. From everything that I've read, Zonovan Knight has been their best running back out there. So I think it kind of might be Michael Carter that would get cut if Dalvin ends up here, or they could trade Michael Carter to another team as well. So I'm carrying all four of these guys right now. I have Travis Dye in some super deep leagues, but he's going to end up probably being a practice squad player at best. And if Abanikanda does sign here too, like, he might be a game day inactive because they would probably have Breece Hall up, they'd have Dalvin Cook up, they'd have Zonovan Knight up. I don't think they would put 4 running backs on the active day roster, and Abanikanda does not play special teams. So that's really interesting with Abanikanda. He might just have like a redshirt year if they brought in Dalvin. If they don't bring in Dalvin, then I could see Abanikanda getting a little bit of run here and there. So what's your thoughts on the Jets?
So Zonovan Knight is very interesting. I loved him last year, and then, he ended up being a practice squad guy, right? And couldn't really beat out Michael Carter last year until later in the year. And all of a sudden he gets in, he produces a shit ton, and by that time I've already been out. Now we go into this year, Breece Hall banged up. You go, okay, I can probably get behind getting some Zonovan Knight because I think, between him and Michael Carter, he's a much better overall running back. His skill set lends it to it. And then they go out and they draft Abanikanda, and you go, shit, that's another dude like Zonovan Knight last year that I really liked and was highly interested in. Now we're just throwing a bunch of junk on one team, and I go, damn it, how do I sift through this? It's interesting that you say Michael Carter might be the cut because I got a shit ton of Michael Carter for the sole purposes of when I was doing a lot of startups, in the spring before the NFL draft. You go, well, Breece Hall's hurt, probably comes back along slowly. I can see a role for Michael Carter for 5 weeks, 6 weeks, something along those lines. And now this dude's on the border of getting cut. Like, I think this is pretty much the signal. If you can get anything for this dude, anything at all, like a fourth, just take it. Just take it, move on, cut your losses, you're good to go. If not, I think you just hold him and you kind of see if he actually does get cut, and then it does everything that you need to know. Zonovan Knight's probably the one that I'm really interested in having, and that's just in case that, Dalvin doesn't sign. If Dalvin Cook doesn't sign with him, I can see Bam Knight having a pretty big role and kind of filling that as they ease Breece back into the season. That'd be the one. Abanikanda, taxi squad stash for me. Best ball rosters, like, this is a guy that I'll probably end up cutting a lot in my best ball. Like, you had him pre-NFL, you had him all over your team, and if he's the third running back, fourth running back, and threatened to be a game day inactive, this is the kind of dude that is the roster clogger, as they say in best ball. That's the guy that you go. And Travis Dye, that's an easy one. Just cut him. just cut him.
For sure. All right, on to the AFC North now. So the Baltimore Ravens are up first. I think this one's pretty easy too. J.K. Dobbins, he's on the pup right now. We'll see what happens there. Gus Edwards and Melvin Gordon are behind him. They still have Justice Hill and Keaton Mitchell. I think they drafted him late in the draft. I think 6th or 7th round. So with Dobbins, we just kind of have to wait and see on him. I don't see these guys signing Zeke or Fournette or anybody like that, Dalvin Cook. Gus Edwards and Melvin Gordon, obviously they signed Melvin Gordon recently, so that was their signing. And they gave Melvin $3.1 million. So Melvin Gordon didn't get $3.1 million to sit on the bench. I think personally Melvin Gordon is going to be the RB2 on this team. Probably play above Gus. Maybe they use Gus in some short yardage situations, maybe goal line, something like that. Justice Hill is a guy, he's been on waivers for 3-4 years now in all my leagues. Just, he's never done anything, never hit what we expected him to. Tore his Achilles when they had the running back apocalypse there when Dobbins got hurt, Edwards got hurt, Justice Hill. And then Keaton Mitchell's an 170-pound return man, basically. So I'm not rostering him anywhere personally. I'm only going to be keeping really Dobbins, Edwards, and Melvin on this team. I think those are the only three you can roster, and I think you can roster them in all three both formats, best ball or lineup. So, do you agree with that?
I'm gonna agree. I'm a lot higher on JK than it seems like a lot of people are in this situation. Whatever it is wanting a new contract. Doesn't worry me as much. Like, I think he's still in a good spot for value, and that's kind of why I gravitated towards him. I think the talent's there for him. The Melvin Gordon signing really signaled to me that Gus Edwards still isn't right after that ACL, right? We didn't fucking J.K. Dobbins came back and played, right? And then went off for another surgery and then came back and then played really well toward the end of the year. And we still didn't see Gus Edwards. We didn't see shit out of him. And he tore his ACL about the same time, and J.K.'s was supposedly worse. They go out and they sign Melvin Gordon. I go, well, that pretty much tells me all I need to know about Gus Edwards. Like, I don't have any interest in him. Lineup best ball, I don't want him on my team. I will roster Melvin Gordon, and I will roster J.K. Dobbins. I might throw a dart at Justice Hill, right? Like, it's a tough drug to quit, the Justice Hill drug. And he's had moments, but I'm kind of with you. Like, I think you just write it off and you go, I'm good. Keaton Mitchell, no interest. Like you said, 170-pound return man, pass. Pass, I'm good.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, on to the Bengals now. This is another one pretty straightforward. Joe Mixon, obviously going to be the starter there. Travion Williams, he's out for a couple weeks. I forget what the hell he did. It sprained his ankle or something. Chase Brown, the rookie that they drafted in the 5th round this year. And then Chris Evans, who they drafted a couple years ago in the 6th round. I think those are going to be the main 4 guys that make this team. Chase Brown, one of the interesting things that I was reading about, they were doing pass protection drills the other day, and Chase Brown won most of his reps, which is very surprising because if you remember from the Senior Bowl, a couple of people that were there mentioned him that he was just getting absolutely killed in passing protection drills, and they thought that was one of the reasons a lot of us soured on him quickly because he couldn't pass protect. Well, obviously he's gotten better at it, so that's really good. I think he's more talented than Travion Williams. Travion Williams has been there since 2019. I couldn't tell you how many carries he's had in his career. It's got to be like less than 50 in his time since he's been there with the Bengals. He's not very good. I think it's going to be Chase Brown is going to be the backup. I'd still rather have Chris Evans over Travion Williams, to be honest, too. I saw a lot of people pick up Travion Williams just because he's been there before, knows the system and whatnot. I'm just not interested in him. So lineup and best ball, I think the only 2 guys I even want here are Mixon and Chase Brown.
47 carries for Travion Williams.
That was close.
Yeah. You were right, though. Less than 50.
That was pretty close.
I got no interest in Travion Williams at all. I would roster Joe Mixon, of course. That's an easy layup. Chase Brown, yes. And the fact that he's fixed his pass pro is pretty interesting because he's got a lot of he's kind of got a lot of that like Samaje Perine feel to him, who did pretty well there last year, right? The highly productive in college back kind of goes under the radar, doesn't get a whole lot of draft capital, but he kind of feels like that guy who could fill that 3rd down role. I'm interested in Chris Evans because he has a lot of talent, but he's also kind of taken that Travion Williams career arc, isn't he? Where we always think he's going to be something and then never actually does anything, right?
Right.
The only thing I can say for Chris Evans is I've actually seen a highlight in a game where he scored a touchdown, and it was a beautiful, like, I think he ran kind of like a wheel route, and Joe Burrow hit him, and I go, oh, okay, he actually did something. Travion Williams, I've never seen it. So best ball lineup, doesn't matter. Joe Mixon, Chase Brown, Chris Evans, those are the big guys I'd be interested in rostering. Travion Williams, no thanks.
Yeah, I think I've dropped all my Chris Evans at this point. He just hasn't had the career that I thought he was going to. Maybe it turns around a little bit this year, but I think he's kind of just buried behind Travion and Chase Brown. But hey, different things can happen here. We'll see if he makes any progress this year.
Yeah.
On to Cleveland, another one that's a little bit interesting here. Chubb, Jerome Ford, Demetric Felton, John Kelly, and Hassan Hall are the top 5 right now. Probably only going to keep 3 of these guys. I think, they've kept John Kelly on the practice squad pretty much the last 3 years. Hassan Hall, I could see him being another practice squad type player for them. I think Demetric Felton, just from watching the Hall of Fame game the other night, Felton looked pretty good. Like, he showed explosiveness. Like, if Jerome Ford can't handle the passing game work, I think Felton could easily come in and be like a third down scat back, like a J.D. McKissick type, Chris Thompson type. Like, I think Felton could do that role for the Browns. Like, you don't want him having, 10, 15 touches a game, but if you can get you 7 touches as like that Chris Thompson type, I think Demetric Felton could do something there. So I'm a little bit interested in him. I might have to pick some up this week on my waivers. Obviously, Chubb, you're going to be keeping. Jerome Ford, he's been doing decent as well, and right now he's the current backup, so you're going to have to keep him. And then I don't see this team signing Zeke, Fournette. Obviously, Kareem Hunt just signed today, so they won't bring him back. Won't be on Dalvin Cook at all either. So I'm guessing you're probably just Chubb and Ford, and that might be it.
Yeah, I last year you're the one who told me to cut all my Demetric Felton, and rightfully so. It was the right play. Now, even if I'm kind of with you, like, I'm intrigued by him. I was intrigued with him last year. You talked me and just let him go, and I did. But one of the reasons you make that kind of move is where we sit at, Eric. Like, I can go pick up a shit ton of Demetric Felton if I really like him today. Like, nobody gives a shit. But that's why you kind of make that move. So I had no interest in Demetric Felton until today when Kareem Hunt signed with the Saints. That has always been something that's been sticking in the back of my mind with Cleveland, is like, man, I could see him bringing back Kareem Hunt, just one more time. And then I'm not as interested in Jerome Ford. I have no interest in Demetric Felton. But since that kind of went by the wayside, it's Nick Chubb for sure. I'm a lot more interested today in Jerome Ford than I think I've ever been. And now I got a tinge. Like, there's a little twinkle in the back of my eye that goes, maybe Demetric Felton. Maybe. Okay, so those would be the guys. John Kelly, I see somebody was posted the Patreon the other day. Should I go pick up John Kelly? I'm like, fuck no.
No, that's just the only football game that's on, and he looks halfway decent.
Don't do this to yourself.
Yeah, no, he's been a practice squad guy for like 3 or 4 years now. That's pretty much his calling in the NFL. And then, like you were talking about with Felton, man, like last year they split in between wide receiver and running back because they needed wide receivers, and they've been playing with him like that. But now he's fully back to running back again, and he definitely has a shot to make this team. I think he's a little sneaky upside there for your deeper leagues for sure.
Right. You got like 40, 45-man rosters. You got the ability to stash him in there. Why not? Yeah. I'd take some shots on Demetric Felton. I'm not going to lie. I'll probably go out, and even in best ball leagues, I might pick up a share or two here, and especially in those leagues where the waiver wire is like, I'm trying to think. We're going to get to it, but I'm trying to think of that deep, like McLaughlin, whoever the fuck that is in Denver, that running back I saw trending a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
This is where we're at.
I picked him up a ton, actually, in my league, so I'll mention him when we get to him. Final team in the AFC North, Pittsburgh. This one is always super easy. It's Najee Harris, it's Jaylen Warren, and it's nobody else. Anthony McFarland has had a really good camp, but he's been there since 2020 and hasn't done a damn thing. And this is his college coach, is the offensive coordinator, and they still can't do anything with him. He is the RB3 now. They had Benny Snell there for the last couple years, but obviously Benny Snell is not there anymore. So McFarland has a little bit of chance. I think he makes the roster, but not somebody I'm even interested in. I think if Najee went down, Jaylen Warren could come in and be the guy. McFarland would get a few touches here and there. And they probably would sign somebody that we're not even really thinking about, like a Damian Williams, a Darrell Williams, somebody like that. If that happens, and any of these other guys that they have, Darius Hagans, Greg Bell, no thanks. So I think just Najee and Warren, right?
Yeah, I'm the big Anthony McFarland truther too, and it hasn't happened, Eric. It hasn't happened yet. You said everything. He's got his college coach there as the offense coordinator. The only guy that was in front of him, like keeping him away, was Benny fucking Snell, and it never happened for him. And I've been down this road as the Anthony McFarland truther. He's had a good camp every year. He's been man, like, right. I'm done. It's Jaylen Warren, it's Najee Harris, and a little bit of an epiphany here just looking at it, man. When I actually look at this depth chart for running backs, like I am very in on Najee Harris and I've been very anti Jalen Warren, but who the fuck else is here, man? Like,
no, there is nobody.
I got to get more interested in Jalen Warren just for the simple fact. I don't think he's a great talent, and I've seen the film breakdown. He didn't really do shit last year. Let's keep it 100, man. Like, as far as fantasy points, how many weeks did you start Jalen Warren last year?
Yeah,
None.
not very many. And
yeah,
I like him. That's one of the guys that I found last year for the Dynasty and Chill group that I did. A lot of those people, I got them on Jalen Warren, Malik Davis. Yeah. And I still like Jalen Warren quite a bit. I think the one thing that I like about this one is the offensive line has definitely improved. They've signed some guys. They drafted some guys. Like, the offensive line is definitely going to be better, and that's always been Pittsburgh's main downfall the last couple of years is that offensive line's been dog shit. So now that it's a little bit better this year, I'm definitely more interested in Najee and Jalen Warren. And it's funny, like, you read or listen to some of like the mainstream podcasts, and they kind of like shit on Najee Harris and the Steelers, like, oh, I don't want him for redraft. Like, I don't want him in round 4. I'm like, guys, like, he's gonna get a ton of touches still. So I don't get it. I'm still definitely in on Najee. I don't think he's as bad. And he had that was it the foot injury last year?
Yep, had the plate in his foot. Yep.
Yeah, he had that all year too. So of course he was going to be bad. I'm definitely in on Najee Harris this year.
See, I've used all those to like shit on Jalen Warren, right? Like, Najee was injured last year and he still didn't do anything. But Eric, I'm telling you right now, as we're going through it, and I look at the rest of the depth chart, and Anthony McFarland's the third option listed on here, and I go, woof. And if I'm going to be this deep in I'm pounding the table for Najee Harris for all the reasons that you listed, offensive line's better, second-year quarterback, not a rookie. They always love to run the ball. Najee Harris was injured last year, had that plate in his foot. I got to be in on Jalen Warren too. And not to the, I've been shitting on him and telling everybody I'll take a third for him. I think those days are gone, man. Like, I'm in on Jalen Warren now for the simple fact that if something happens to Najee Harris, or if they try to take a little bit of his workload away, right? Like, just to spell him, to keep him more fresh, there is nobody else besides Jalen Warren on this team that's worth a shit. And it's going to be Jalen Warren. Like, that's a secure role he has already out the gate with the possibility of having more. So, man, I'm glad we did this, because now I got to go get some Jalen Warren before I put this thing out on the airways.
Right. All right, now on to Houston. Here's a little bit of a jumbled backfield after the top two. So top 2, Damian Pierce and Devin Singletary. Those two are going to be locked into their top 2 roles this year. Best ball lineup, want them both. After that, these guys are probably lineup guys, if anything, probably not in best ball. Mike Boone, I think he's just a solid. If something happened to one of the top 2, Boone could come in and just do enough to, not suck. Dario Ogunwale, he is just like a pass-catching type guy, not anybody that you want to roster. Xavier Valade, that was a guy that a lot of people were high on. He was undrafted as a college free agent this year. I haven't heard much about him in training camp, so I think we're going to have to kind of watch the preseason games to see if he pops at all, because I could see him easily coming over Dare or Jared Dokes, who's there too. If he could pop, and maybe he could be a little bit better than Mike Boone. I know they signed Mike Boone. But Valade, I probably is going to be a practice squad guy at best, but I am interested and curious to see about him, because some prominent people did like him. But yeah, Pierce and Singletary are probably the only 2 I really want to roster, though.
I'm with you. Best ball, it's Pierce and Singletary, no question. None of the other guys interest me at all. Lineup, I'll throw Mike Boone and Xavier Valade in there, just as guys that I would be monitoring, possibly rostering, or trying to stash. Those guys, I think in lineup leagues, you could get something out of. Best ball, they're zeros. You just move on with yourself. But yeah, best ball is pretty easy. Pierce and Singletary lineup. I'll throw. I don't have any interest in Ogunbowale. There was a time where I was a big Jared Dokes fan, but as you can see, he's done absolutely nothing. So we keep him moving.
Yep. All right, on to Indy. So this is obviously one of the intriguing backfields going on right now in the NFL. Jonathan Taylor still on the PUP list. Don't know when that situation is going to be sorted out. Zach Moss, he's going to make the team, and then he'll just probably revert to IR for a couple weeks. Broke his arm early on a couple weeks ago. Evan Hull, I've heard really good things about him. 5th-round pick. I think he's going to definitely make the team as a 5th rounder. So I think those 3 are pretty safe. And then this 4th spot, we're really going to have to figure out who's going to make it. So right now we have Jake Funk, probably not going to be him, and Xavier Scott, who's a college free agent, probably not going to be him. The 2 that we're going to be interested in here are Kenyon Drake, who they just signed the other day, and Deion Jackson. Deion Jackson's actually gotten some hype from some people lately just because he did look pretty good last year. When Nyheim Hines was traded, Deion Jackson kind of played that role, and he had one game where he had like 10 catches. So I kind of thought, man, Deion Jackson can kind of just play the same Nyheim Hines role, but he really didn't. Towards the end of the season, he kind of got forgotten about when Taylor and Moss kind of took over. Kenyon Drake, I'm definitely going to have to pick some up this week on waivers. I think that's a guy that's intriguing to me. If they don't believe in Evan Hull or Zach Moss suffers a setback, I think Drake could come in and, he could do decent for you. Like, I don't think it's the Kenyon Drake of old, but he can come in a pinch and he could probably still get you 15 to 18 carries and still be able to handle the load and do the receiving game as well. So what are your thoughts here on Indy?
Yeah, this is one of the weird backfields where in best ball, like I'm interested in a lot of guys, and I usually don't, right? Jonathan Taylor's a layup, but Moss, Hull, Kenyon Drake, and Deion Jackson, even in best ball leagues, if I got more than 30, 32 roster spots in that, I'm probably trying to roster all these guys just so I see how it shakes out. But if I'm doing that in the best ball, as hell damn well in lineup leagues, like I'm rostering all those guys. But I'm with you. It's Taylor, obviously, Zach Moss, Evan Hull, Kenyon Drake, Deion Jackson, and I want all of them, every single one of them.
Yeah, and just see what kind of happens between there. We'll see what happens in the preseason game.
The only one I can rule out as I go, I'm not doing the Jank Funk thing ever again.
Yeah, no, I've never been on that one for sure. All right, so now we're going to move on to Jacksonville. I think this one is actually pretty straightforward as well. So obviously ETN and Bigsby are going to be your top 2. Bigsby has looked amazing at training camp, receiving the ball, rushing the ball. I think this is going to be like a 60-30-10 split between ETN, Bigsby, and I think Dearness Johnson or Jermichael Hasty, whichever one wins the role. Right now, it sounds like it's going to be Dearness Johnson, who they signed this offseason, would probably be that 3rd guy. He's looked really good at camp. So I'm thinking that's kind of what it's going to be this year between those 3. They have kept 4 running backs on the roster, so I could still see Hasty hanging around. Snoop Connor, who they drafted in the 5th round, he was kind of just buried last year, was inactive most of the time. I've dropped him everywhere. I'm not interested in him. They have Quadre Olson too, who they signed as a priority free agent. He's just bounced around from team to team to team. He's pretty much a camp body at this point. But ETN, Bigsby, Dearness Johnson, a little Jermichael Hasty is probably all I'm interested in here.
Just the top 2 guys for me in best ball leagues, Bigsby and ETN. Lineup leagues, I think I'd go to 4, Eric. Like I will put Hasty and Dearness both in there just to see until it shakes out, like who's going to be that 3rd guy. No interest in Snoop Connor or Quadre at all for me. Like I'd drop them immediately if I haven't already.
Yeah, Hasty was he showed some flashes last year. He had a couple
right,
of
and they re-signed him. Like they put some money. I know they signed Dearness, but they also put money into Jermichael Hasty and re-signed him as well. Yeah. So it was like, okay. And before they drafted Tank Bigsby, I thought I was pretty big on picking out Jermichael Hasty everywhere that I could.
Right. I mean, I still like ETN a little bit, but I think he kind of drops down a little bit for me. I know last week or something, the coach or Peterson was talking about ETN getting 1,600, 1,700 rushing yards. I'm like, maybe in 2 seasons combined, but. Not this year. I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I've been kind of the ETN hater, right? Like I tried to get people on board a few months ago with trading Travis Etienne for the guy who's got Tank Bigsby in your league and getting a 1st round pick, and I would have done that everywhere. And They're like, you're crazy. You can't do that.
No,
like,
I don't hate that at all.
I would have liked to do it. And Tank has taken off, like you said. Everything in the training camp looks really good. I'm not saying Travis Etienne's bad. Like, I'm still in on him. I don't think he's garbage. I just think the process play for me has always been find another running back and pick up a random first.
I think how I view it is it's pretty much like a Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon situation between Etienne and Bigsby. That's kind of how I'm viewing it.
I'm with you.
All right, Tennessee. So this one also pretty straightforward. Derrick Henry, obviously you're rostering. Tajay Spears, the third-round rookie. He's going to make the team as like the change of pace back. Jonathan Ward is pretty much just a special teams guy that they picked up. He's going to make the team just for special teams purposes. And then it's going to be between Hassan Haskins and Julius Chestnut. Just from the couple Titans writers that I read from, kind of think it's going to be Haskins. They would have just cut Haskins already if they were going to, in my opinion. He might get a suspension for the first couple games or whatever it is once his court case is settled. So we'll have to wait on that. I think that's kind of what everybody's waiting for on Haskins. I think his court case is soon. And then Julius Chestnut, he could be a practice squad guy. He might make the team if Haskins does get cut. I would think they would want to hold on to Haskins just because they drafted him in the 4th round. So I think we're going to have to kind of wait and see on that one.
Best ball, this is easy. It's Derrick Henry, Tajay Spears, the only two lineup. Yep. Jeez, I got a hard time going past those two even in lineup.
Haskins didn't do shit last year. He was really disappointing to me after.
And he, I would say too, just to the point about who makes the team between him and Chestnut, wasn't Hassan Haskins returning kicks last year for him? I don't know how much other special teams he played, but I do remember watching him during a week returning a kick, which I thought was the strangest thing ever.
Yeah, he could
at
some point.
Not as the up man either. Being the guy standing in the end zone, and I'm going, fucking Hassan Haskins returning kicks, ain't he slower than shit?
Right. I mean, I remember him in the Big Ten, man. Like, he killed Ohio State 2 years ago. And then he had didn't he have that huge game against Iowa too in the Big Ten championship?
Yeah, we both got burned back to back.
Right. So I had some hope for him. I was like, okay, man, this kid looks pretty good, and he just hasn't done it yet in the NFL. So I still have a little bit of hope for him. I've seen some people just straight up drop him. I know Scott Connor dropped him pretty much as immediately as the news came out. I'd still hold on to him a little bit, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Scott. As soon as that domestic violence thing came out, he was already fringe rosterable anyways.
Yeah.
When they drafted Tajay, and I go, well, this is easy.
Right, I get it. Okay, on to Denver now here in the NFC or AFC West. So Javonte Williams, man, everything's looking great for him right now. He's practicing full pads, no restrictions. Kind of like a minor medical miracle, to be honest with you, that he's even being able to do this right now. Samaje Perine, the backup, I think he's pretty much locked in as a third down back for sure. Change of pace, I bet you he gets a couple series to himself as well. So Samaje Perine definitely going to have a lot of value for you this year. And then the other ones, Tony Jones Jr., I think, obviously Sean Payton knew him from New Orleans. I'm not too big on him. I like the other two better, which are Tyler Beatty and Jaleel McLaughlin. McLaughlin is a UDFA that they brought in, and everything from camp is that he's been doing really good, a lot better than the other two. Tyler Beatty's had some good moments as well. Tony Jones, haven't really heard too much about him. I picked up Jaleel McLaughlin a lot last week just to kind of see what happens. And you have to remember with Sean Payton and his history of UDFA running backs, he's kept a lot in his times if they're anywhere being good. So Pierre Thomas, Daniel Lascow, I'm sure there's a couple others that I'm missing that they've had over the times. So yeah, he's had a history of keeping these guys. So I think Jaleel McLaughlin is definitely a guy worth picking up, especially in lineup leagues. Your best ball leagues, probably not. It's probably just going to be Javonte and Perine.
But we got some deeper ones that we play in, which, I can see a case for McLaughlin. Javonte Perine for best ball for me, that's it. I have no interest in Tony Jones or Tyler Beatty. But just because you're like, hey, undrafted guy, doing well in camp, I can see a case where even in a best ball league, if I've got enough roster spots, I'm going to pick him up. Lineup leagues for me, it's Williams, it's B. Ryan, and it's McLaughlin. I still have no interest in Tony Jones or Tyler Beatty.
Right. I liked Tony Jones a couple years ago, but he just once he played against the starters, he wasn't very good. So he's just one of those guys that just doesn't have the talent.
He was great against the third team defense in training camp, and we all bought into it. And then he once you seen him in an actual NFL game, you went, "Oh my God, this guy's horrible."
Yeah. On to Kansas City. This one's very easy. Pacheco, McKinnon, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Deneric Prince. I'm interested in all four of those. LaMichael Pirine has never done anything in the league, so I'm not interested in him. Deneric Prince is the one, the UDFA from this year. He has been amazing at camp. You just hear rave reviews about him. Passing game, rushing game, all that. He's done good. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's still going to be there. He's still going to get a shot. You got to roster those guys. McKinnon, Pacheco, those guys have been excellent too. Pacheco's coming back off of a couple surgeries, but he was great last year. So I think you got to keep four here. I think you agree.
Yeah, doesn't matter the format, lineup, best ball, roster size on 104. I want exposure to every single one of them because we've seen them, late in the year. But no one really gave a shit about Jerick McKinnon at this time last year, and all of a sudden he's a league winner. We get to
2 years in a row.
I know. You just keep them all.
Interested in him finally.
You keep them all until they're hurt and they're out for the year, or they get cut from the team.
Yep. All right, on to Vegas now. So obviously Josh Jacobs. We don't know about that saga right now, how that's going to play out. Still hasn't signed the franchise tag or got a new contract or anything. Amir Abdullah is listed as the RB2 right now. I think it's going to be Zamir White would be like the early down guys, and maybe Abdullah would be used in the passing game. So I kind of think that's what's going to happen there. I'm not even really interested in Abdullah. I don't even really want him that much, but I could see in a deeper league, best ball, if he, Jacobs isn't there, Abdullah maybe get you 4 or 5 catches and do something good. Brandon Bolden, he's solid when he does get to play, but he's just a special teams type player. Britton Brown, I do like a little bit too, but he's just kind of buried behind these guys. So anybody here on Vegas you want to highlight?
It's really just the top 3 guys for me: Jacobs, Abdullah, Zamir White. Like you said, you can make a case in best ball. I'm not huge on Amir Abdullah either, Eric, but I don't know this situation and how it plays out. So I go, well, I want to have some exposure just in case. Right. The rest of the guys, even if Brandon Bolden ends up with a role, we've seen him with a role and never do anything. And the other 2 guys, no. So it's the top 3 guys for me, lineup or best ball. Those are the only ones I have interest in. And I'm kind of 50-50 on Amir Abdullah, how much interest I actually have in him.
Mm-hmm. All right, on to LA Chargers. So Austin Eckler, obviously a stud. Josh Kelly, Isaiah Spiller, those 2 were definitely interested in, both 4th round picks. Really haven't read too much lately on Kelly or Spiller, so I'm kind of hoping Isaiah Spiller would show up a little bit here. Haven't heard much on him. I think we're just going to have to wait till the preseason games to see that. Larry Roundtree still here, a 6th round pick. Elijah Dotson, a college free agent that they picked up as well. He's gotten a little bit of hype at times. I think we're just going to kind of have to wait and see what happens in the preseason games here. This team usually keeps 4 running backs, so a Roundtree or Dotson does have a chance to make the team, but the hashtag any RB on a 53, those might be the very last 2 on that list. So I'm not interested in Roundtree because I've seen what he can do, and it's not much. Dotson, I haven't really seen yet, so a little bit interested on him, but we'll see. I still like Spiller, still like Kelly. We'll see what happens there.
Yeah, top 3 for me: Eckler, Kelly, Spiller, and best ball. Lineup leagues, I'll throw Elijah Dotson into it just for the simple fact that it's the unknown. Right, the any running back on a 53, even if he's towards the bottom, it's the unknown. Maybe I watch him in the preseason and he turns out this kid's got some juice. And let's be honest, the 2 guys in front of him, Joshua Kelly's really never done it for me. And we had high hopes for Isaiah Spiller, and it hasn't panned out yet. And the fact that we're going into a 2nd year and we still haven't heard man, Isaiah Spiller's killing it at training camp. makes me worried.
Yeah, a little bit. I think I'll give him until the games, and we'll see what he does in the games coming up. But yeah, so far not great. All right, so on to the NFC now. Dallas Cowboys going to be the first team here. So Tony Pollard, obviously super stud. Love Tony Pollard. They have Rico Dowdle listed as number 2 here. I doubt he's a number 2. That guy's always hurt. He does have a chance. I think this team definitely could be the team that picks up Zeke again if they can convince Zeke to come back for cheap. Let him know, hey, you're not going to have the same role that you did last year. Pollard's our guy, but I could see Zeke coming back, and I actually think that's probably the most likely outcome. Zeke comes back here eventually. We'll see what happens there. Malik Davis, I think if nobody signs here, and Malik Davis should be the backup. I did like him quite a bit. I've heard Dwayne McFarland and a couple other guys kind of shit on him that he's not any good. I don't think he's like, Jaylen Warren or anything like that, but I think he's at least solid enough to at least have a role. And then Deuce Vaughn, who they drafted in the 6th round, he'll be on the team. Obviously, he's a very little guy, but he does have some talent, man. So I could see Deuce Vaughn. He could have a couple good plays here and there during the year. Definitely somebody I want to hold on to and line up. What are your thoughts on Deuce Vaughn and the rest of these guys in best ball?
So where it stands right now, I got 4 guys, lineup or best ball, I'm interested in. Right, I'm gonna want that number 2 role on the Dallas Cowboys. It's a good offense. Unfortunately, for me being an Eagles fan, and I'm gonna have to give them some praise. It's a good offense that I want a piece of. So Pollard, Rico Dowdle, as much as I don't want to admit it, I still probably want to roster him just to see if it actually shakes out. And of course, Malik Davis, and then Deuce Vaughn is very intriguing. So best baller lineup, I want all 4 of them. Eric, if it's the situation though, they bring back Zeke, and I'm not even talking Zeke of 2 years ago or Zeke of last year in his role. If they bring him back, that really narrows the list to Pollard, Zeke, and Deuce Vaughn would be the only ones I'd be interested in. And immediately I'd be cutting all my Rico Dowdle, Malik Davis shares. I'm good. They're worthless to me in lineup or best ball. So if that situation does happen and they bring Zeke back, just to kind of forecast it, that's probably where I'd be at. I'd still keep Deuce Vaughn around just because they spent draft capital on him and he's intriguing as far as his skill set and what he can do. I really want to see if that will play out in the NFL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree with you on Malik Davis. If I have a bunch of him, I'd probably end up cutting him if they did re-sign Zeke. So I agree. On to the Giants now. So Saquon Barkley, obviously super stud, got his 1-year deal to play. I think he's going to have a solid year. They still have Matt Breida and Eric Gray as the top 2 backups. I think those guys are probably locked in right now. I think the rest of these guys are kind of fighting for maybe a 4th spot. Gary Brightwell, James Robinson, who they signed after the Patriots cut him, and Jayshawn Corbin. I haven't really heard much on any of those last 3, Brightwell, Robinson, Corbin. So if I have them, I'm probably just leaving them on waivers. I don't think James Robinson is somebody that I'm super interested in. Matt Breida is one of the guys. He's on my roster right now. He's probably one of my first cuts if I have to, just because I think he's a little older now. He's lost some juice. And personally, I think Eric Gray's better. But I also haven't heard much on Eric Gray so far at camp, too. So I'm guessing you're probably at 3 on this one?
Yeah, I'm at 3, regardless of format. Barkley, Breida, Eric Gray. I really wanted to throw a Jayshawn Corbin in, but that was last year, man.
Right.
All these guys that they keep bringing in, drafting, signing, just turds. Yeah, I'm good, man. If he hasn't done it yet, it ain't happening. So, Matt Breida, though, I'm kind of with you. That's also one of those guys where I go, yeah, technically Saquon's backup. I'm interested, but it's also one of those things where I got no problems just dropping them to waivers because you could probably pick them back up at least in 60-70% of your leagues if you really need to.
For sure. All right, so on to your Eagles. So DeAndre Swift, Rashad Penny are going to be the top 2 here. Nothing's changing there. Gainwell, Boston Scott, who they re-signed. I think those guys are probably the top 4. They still have Trey Sermon. They have Kennedy Brooks. I think Kennedy Brooks will just be cut. Trey Sermon, I'm going to guess they're going to try and sneak him back onto the practice squad. They do like him. I just don't know if he's going to beat out Boston Scott, who's been pretty reliable, good special teams player too. So I think that these 4 are pretty much set in stone. And the only ones I want to carry lineup and best ball would be Swift, Gainwell, and Penny.
Yeah. I can make the case for Boston Scott whenever he plays the Giants. Like just that week before, pick him up if you're in a best ball league. Like you don't got to start him. Don't do it in a lineup league. But in a best ball league, pick him up when he plays the Giants, just in case.
Right.
We can rule that out. But yeah, I'm with you. Swift, Gainwell, Rashad Penny. I kind of make a case in lineup, like a deeper lineup. I'm intrigued by Trey Sermon just because he's a little bit different than the rest of the running backs besides Rashad Penny. Like that size. And what we do know about Rashad Penny is we might only get him for like 2 games. So if he does get snuck onto the practice squad, that'd be a guy at least I would be highly monitoring for inevitably whenever Rashad Penny gets injured.
Yeah, no, I agree with that for sure. Because if Penny gets hurt, I could see, it's just 3 smaller guys, really, Scott, Swift, and Gainwell. So I could see that for sure. Yeah, so that's a sneaky one. On to Washington now. So I think this one's pretty easy too. It's going to be Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson, that I'm probably interested in. Probably only those 2 in best ball. And then coming in the lineup, Chris Rodriguez Jr., who they drafted in the round 6. He's pretty much like a Brian Robinson clone. So if Brian Robinson were to get hurt, I think Rodriguez could come in and at least take some of that work there. Jonathan Williams, he's just pretty much a special teams player at this point. Jarrett Patterson's probably a practice squatter. And they just signed Derek Gore last week as well. So we'll have to see how Derek Gore fits into there. But I probably think he's more of a camp body more than anything. But I'm guessing you're probably the same as me, just the top 3, and that's it.
Yeah, I'm kind of the Brian Robinson hater and Antonio Gibson truther, but I still want you got to roster Brian Robinson for sure.
Right.
And I'm with you. Like if you got to roster Brian Robinson, like I want to roster his clone. Like if he goes down or anything bad happens to him, I don't think Antonio Gibson, as long as Ron Rivera's there, is ever going to get the workload he deserves. So Chris Rodriguez becomes very intriguing, and none of the other guys, Jonathan Williams. We've seen the Jarrett Patterson thing. It hasn't been good. And,
he's just small.
Yeah. So it's those top 3 for me too.
With Rodriguez too, I thought I read something about Washington had a super high grade on him in the draft, like a 3rd or 4th round grade or something. So they're definitely very high on him. So.
Yeah, I could believe it, man. They were very high on Brian Robinson for no good reason too.
Exactly. All right, on to Chicago. So right now, it's Khalil Herbert and Deontay Foreman are kind of splitting the reps as the ones. I think that's going to pretty much continue there. I think that's going to be a 50-50 split. Roshan Johnson, he started off camp a little slow, but from when the pads came on is when he came alive. He's doing really good in the pass game, running the ball pretty well too. So I think he's kind of stuck behind Herbert and Foreman for this year, but Roshan's definitely going to be somebody they count on special teams, and he's going to have, he'll get a couple carries a game. So I think those 3 are definitely guys you want to roster in every format. And then they signed Travis Homer, and they obviously drafted Treston Ebner last year. I was really high on Ebner. He had a really good preseason. He just got buried. I mean, they brought in Foreman. They brought in Roshan Johnson, brought in Travis Homer. They brought in 3 guys ahead of you that kind of just signals, okay, it might not be his time anymore for Ebner. So I'm kind of thinking he's a practice squad guy at best or just gets cut. Then Travis Homer is like a 3rd down back, special teams type player. Not interested in him, but the first 3 definitely interested.
Yep, I'm with you. This is the easy one for me. I want the top 3 guys, regardless of format. It is like I do feel like you got to pour one out, right? Whatever's remaining in this water bottle for Treston Ebner. I was with you last year. I really liked him, but
he had. I think he played Kansas City in the preseason and had some amazing plays. So I really high on Ebner. I know me and Scott talked him up a lot. It just didn't work out for him.
Yep.
Detroit, this one's super easy. Montgomery, Gibbs are going to be the 1A, 1B starters. Craig Reynolds is kind of running right now as like the second guy through on the second team. Justin Jackson is behind him. I think those are the only four I want to roster. Kind of like how they had it last year. Just they had Jamal Williams and Swift in the Montgomery and Gibbs roles. Jamar Jefferson, Mohamed Ibrahim. Haven't really heard much about Ibrahim, and they just signed Justin Jackson ahead of him. I think that kind of put the nail in the coffin for him. Maybe a practice squad spot. Jamar Jefferson, 7th round pick from 2021. He's probably going to have to be a practice squad guy as well. So, first four guys are the only ones I want.
Yeah, best ball leagues, I really only want Monty and Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't really care about any of the rest ones. Lineup leagues, I make a case for Craig Reynolds. Definitely throw him in there. And I still do have some hope for Mohamed Ibrahim, but the Justin Jackson signing doesn't bode well. I don't want any part of Justin Jackson in any league that I'm in, though. Like, I'm good. I've done this experiment.
Right. He actually had a couple good games last year. Once Swift was getting banged up, Jamal Williams was banged up. Jackson had a couple games there at the end of last year, so that at least makes me intrigued by him. I was never like big on him when he was with the Chargers. I always had the other guys, but Jackson was one of the ones who always made me look stupid.
Oh man, I hope Mohamed Ibrahim actually does something though.
It's a good story. I thought he was a great back at Minnesota. He had, he was there for like 17 years or something in Minnesota.
I think it was the measurables like really did it in for me too. Like you always envision him as like that 220-pound hammer, and then it comes in like the dude barely can make 200 pounds, and you go, what the hell?
Yeah. And his injuries, I think, took a lot of his explosiveness and all that too. So unfortunate.
Yeah.
On to Green Bay now. I think this one is usually they only kept 2 running backs last year. It was just Jones and Dillon, and it kind of disappointed me because I really was on your guy, Iowa, Tyler Goodson.
Yeah.
And I really liked him. He's still on the team, and he's probably the best third running back they have right now. So we'll see if they keep Goodson this year on the team. I'm kind of hoping so. But after Jones and Dillon, Goodson is honestly the only one I'm even interested in. I know Patrick Taylor's there. He's kind of in the mix for the third running back. He's kind of a special teams player. Lou Nichols, who they drafted in the 7th round this year. Obviously, they drafted him. They don't want to cut one of their draft picks. So I think he has a good chance if he shows good in the preseason. And then Emmanuel Wilson and Nate McCrary, who they just picked up from the Browns. I don't think those guys have a shot. They're just kind of camp bodies. So I'm guessing you're probably with me. Aaron Jones and Dillon in every league. And for me in lineup, I'll still hold on to Tyler Goodson, maybe Lou Nichols. Other than that, I'm not interested in any of them.
100%. You know that I'll hold on to Tyler Goodson in lineup league, and I will stash some Lou Nichols in the hopes. And best ball leagues, you definitely shouldn't be doing that.
Right.
Don't waste your roster spots.
Yeah, and none of the free agents there. I don't think Fournette or any of them would be considered.
I doubt it.
This one, I could see maybe one of the free agents coming here. So this is Minnesota. So obviously Alexander Madison, 2019 third-round pick. He's going to be the starter this year. Kenan Longnu, very explosive athlete, really good return man. I just don't see him as a guy that could handle like an RB2 workload. Like if Madison went down, he's definitely not getting 20 carries. There's no way. Ty Chandler, who I really, really liked from last year. I still think he's really good. He's probably my favorite to be the RB2 here, but he's going to have to show like he did in preseason last year that he can earn it, stay healthy and all that. Really like Ty Chandler. I'm keeping him in all formats. Dwayne McBride, a lot of people's favorite from the 7th round this year. He's actually had a really good camp too, so I could see him having a shot. And Abram Smith just signed there. He was a UDFA last year. Wasn't in the league at all after training camp, and then he finally catches on here with Minnesota. Not too interested in him, but Chandler, Dwayne McBride, Madison I'm interested in. And Longnu, I just can't get behind it, honestly. I don't see it. I'm sure some other people do, but I think he's just set as a return guy. Maybe one of those like Devin Achane give me a touch or two here and there, manufactured touch guy. But I could see, like, they were in on Kareem Hunt. They talked to him. Like, it wouldn't shock me if they came up and said, hey, Leonard Fournette, hey, Ezekiel Elliott, you guys want to come play here for a cheap deal? I could see it. One of those guys ending up here.
Yeah, definitely. I'm with you. I can see one of those guys signing. As far as this one goes, like, I'm interested in the top 4. I will include Nwangu in there. I got way too many shares of him, but anytime you're that kind of size speed freak, like, I'm highly intrigued. I don't know if he has the skills to actually be an actual every down running back or, carve out a role for himself. But, when you run that fast of a 40 at that size that he's at, I'm pretty intrigued. So I will still continue to roster him until I'm told otherwise. Ty Chandler, I'm with you. I think he might be my most owned player in Dynasty just because he's cheap. And I want to see how that plays out. And close second to, like, most owned's got to be Dwayne McBride. So I will go all the way down there, and I want to roster all these guys, best ball or lineup, until we figure out what the actual situation is. But if they were to bring in a Fournette, if they were to bring in a Zeke, and it's, Madison, Zeke, I'm probably still going to roster Ty Chandler. I won't be rostering any Nwangu, and the Dwayne McBride shares would be nothing more than a lineup taxi squad stash.
Yep, I agree with that. On to Atlanta now. So, obviously, Bijan Robinson, he's going to be the stud. Tyler Algier going to be the backup. And I think Algier is going to get a little bit more work than people are thinking, too. I can still see him getting 10 carries a game or so. Maybe get used on the goal line a little bit. So, still like Tyler Algier. Cordell Patterson, I mean, he's getting paid like almost $5 million this year, but I think he's going to kind of get his role changed a little bit. He's going to probably get used more as a wide receiver too. Sure, he'll still get some running back carries, but not as many as he's had the last couple years. And then the battle for the RB4 spot is actually really intriguing between Godwin Igwebuike, who they picked up a couple weeks ago, and Carlos Washington Jr. Both of those guys have done really, really good at camp, and it's just a running offense. So I am intrigued by both of them. I don't know if I'm going to pick them up yet, but I want to maybe see a preseason game or two before I pick them up in a deeper league. Obviously, shallower leagues, you're not going to want the RB4 on Atlanta because I think the other three are way more talented. But definitely am intrigued by Igwebuike and Washington Jr.
Ooh. Yeah, where I'm at right now, I'm kind of with you. I want to see how those other two guys play, get some preseason action, some hot and heavy, and see if I can make any rash decisions based off of that. But for now, both formats for me, Bijan, Algier, Cordero, those are the only ones that I'll be rostering.
Okay, easy. And then Carolina, Miles Sanders is obviously the 3-down workhorse probably. Chuba Hubbard, Raheem Blackshear, definitely rostering all three of those guys in all formats. And then these other two, Spencer Brown, Cameron Peoples, not really interested in either of those guys. So I think this one's super easy.
Yeah, this one's easy. Those three guys, both formats, I'll roster them all. I will say in best ball, you're probably less likely to roster a lot of Blackshear, just as a deeper one, an offense that we're uncertain about. But worth a shot, at least if you got the roster space to do it in best ball. Lineup, definitely all three of them, no question.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, and then on to the Saints here. So obviously they just signed Kareem Hunt today, so he's going to be included in here. Jamal Williams, Alvin Kamara, Kendre Miller, those are going to be your top 4 that you're probably going to be rostering everywhere. How it works out, that's going to be interesting. So I still think Jamal Williams is going to be the lead guy here early on until Kamara comes back from the suspension. It's going to be interesting to see how Jamal, Kamara, and Hunt work out. And you have Kendre, too. One of those guys is probably going to be inactive once Kamara comes back. So do you think Hunt is maybe just around for the first 3 weeks and then he might be the cut candidate?
I didn't really see the details of the deal, like how much money they're going to actually give him. I can't imagine it's a lot. We had a lot of concerns about him kind of being washed last year, didn't we? And it just feels like he kind of fits that where it's, hey, Kamara's going to be gone. We just kind of need another guy that we can trust, a veteran presence. This honestly could just be Kareem Hunt's in there for the first 3 weeks, and it's really just insurance to see if Kendre Miller was actually going to be ready to go and give him something during that time. I mean, Eric, I wouldn't be shocked, too, if we get to the last week of the preseason, and Kendre Miller looks fully healthy from whatever he was dealing with that knee injury, and he's actually looking good, that they had just cut Kareem Hunt before he actually plays a real game for him. And they go, hey, we're good. We got Jamal, we got Kendre. We'll just find some third turd that we're going to throw off the street here as the the special teams kind of guy until Alvin gets back. So, I want to roster Kareem Hunt because in the off case that I'm wrong and he's actually, rejuvenated and good, it's a muddy, murky backfield, so I think you got to roster all these guys. The only one I can say you don't need to roster is Elias Merriweather. I can't even get his name right.
Right.
Whoever the fuck that guy is.
He's actually gotten some hype too, but he's buried. He's probably a practice squad guy. I think what the good thing with Kareem Hunt news is people that have held on to him, because I don't see many people that have dropped him so far.
No.
They're kind of just waiting to see where he ended up. You can maybe get something for him. I don't care if it's a fourth round pick or some fab. I think
Right.
I'll just sell Kareem Hunt for whatever I can right now. If I can get a third round pick, I'll do a backflip. If I can get a fourth round or fab, I'll settle for a fourth round or fab on Kareem Hunt, because I think there is a good possibility, like you said, he could just get cut, especially if Kendre shows that he's healthy, ready to go, and all that. Otherwise, if they just have those three, it's going to be between Kendre and Kareem Hunt every week on who they sit once Kamara comes back. So
Right. I got to imagine that at least Kendre could be like a personal protector on the punt team.
Right. Well, we at least know Jamal, Kendre, and Kareem or Alvin Kamara are making the team right out of camp. So those three are going to be on the roster. It's just, will Kareem Hunt make it or not? We're just going to have to wait over these next few weeks. Maybe he shows his explosiveness is back after some injuries, so who knows?
Yep.
Okay, Tampa Bay. Here's an interesting one. So obviously Rachaad White is going to be the lead guy right now. Chase Edmonds, Keyshawn Vaughn, Patrick Laird still there, and Sean Tucker, one of the hyped UDFAs this year. So Sean Tucker has looked decent from stuff I've read. I honestly have not heard much on Chase Edmonds and Keyshawn Vaughn, but it sounds like Rachaad White is definitely going to be the main guy. He's running a lot more routes in the route tree. Pretty decent offensive line. I just haven't really been in on Rachaad White as highly as some others are. I'm a little bit skeptical. I think he's like back end RB2 at best for me. But what do you think about Rachaad White? Because I know you've liked him and some of these other guys.
I liked him, but the hype train took off too much for me in the offseason, where I was like, listen, man, it's a bad offense. He did some things. Dusty ass left tackle Lenny, basically bodied him last year, even though he looks slow and gross. Like, let's pump the brakes. I'm kind of like, I'm with you, man. More like back end RB2-ish. I could see it. So this one's pretty gross for me. Like, I already have the concerns about the lead guy. So when I look at it afterwards, like in best ball, I'm going to roster Rachaad White and Sean Tucker, and that's it. And the Sean Tucker thing is just because it's a guy I like who's got some juice and explosiveness, and it's a murky backfield. Like, that's the one, if he doesn't make the team or goes to the practice squad, boom, done, cut, easy roster spot. I'll pivot to some shitty wide receiver somewhere else. Lineup league, I'm interested in Rachaad White, I'm interested in Keyshawn Vaughn, and I'm interested in Sean Tucker, and that's it. I kind of just skipped over Chase Edmonds. I've seen this, and it's never gone well, so I'm good. If it's already a bad offense, I know, just on the off chance, like the right process play for you guys out there listening is to probably roster Chase Edmonds in your lineup leagues. I just can't do it, Eric. If you ask me, I'll have none. I'm good.
I still like Chase Edmonds, but I get it. It's hard to play with him right now. So, yeah, I get it. I could also see a world where they sign Zeke or Fournette if they can want to bring Fournette back for some reason.
I don't know why those guys would want to play there, though, because this team is going to be competing for the 101.
Yeah. Baker Mayfield does not look good at all. And
neither does Kyle Trask. So.
Yeah. Okay, so on to Arizona. I kind of talked about this one earlier. James Conner, Keontae Ingram, Corey Clement, Marlon Mack, who they just signed, Amare DiMercado, and Tyson Williams are there. So they obviously just signed Marlon Mack over the weekend. I think it's not a lock that he makes the team, but he has looked good in practices so far that I've read. This team could definitely use probably an upgraded RB2 because I don't know if Keontae Ingram is ready for that role. But Connor is going to get a lot of work this year. Ingram, I still like. I'm still going to hold on to. Corey Clement, no thanks. Marlon Mack, I might have to pick some up today just in case he is the backup and he beats out Ingram. DeMercado, I picked up a ton of just because this backfield was wide open. Now signing Marlon Mack. DeMercado probably is going to end up on the practice squad if he makes the team at all. Tyson Williams hasn't been relevant in a couple years, so I'm not interested in him. What's your thoughts here on Arizona?
Really heading into the year, I really wanted Connor and Keontae Ingram. And you guys, when you did America's game, that was a long time ago, it feels like, but you got me on DeMercado. So I was like, okay, yeah, I can get it. I can get some hope. Then they signed Marlon Mack, and I go, shit. All right, well, that's done.
Yeah,
that's pretty much done. The last few shares I'm holding on in lineup leagues, like they're hanging on by a thread. But right now, as it stands, I want Connor. I want some Keontae Ingram in best ball, and that is it. Lineup leagues, I can make a case for some Marlon Mack or some DeMercado, and that's probably it. Like, that's a stretch. Again, this is also like Tampa Bay, a team that's going to be really bad, and the running back room is pretty gross top to bottom. So it's hard to roster a lot of guys off of this team.
Oh, yeah, for sure, because they're going to be bad. On to the Rams. Only a couple more teams here left. Rams are pretty easy. Cam Akers, Kyron Williams. Definitely want both of those guys lineup and best ball. Zach Evans, I haven't really heard too much about him, so that's probably going to have to wait to see how he looks in the preseason games. Ronnie Rivers was definitely a guy I did not like. College free agent from 2022. He did get in a little bit last year when the whole Cam Akers saga happened, but he was not like very good. And they just signed Royce Freeman after Sony Michel retired. So I kind of think Royce Freeman is like a camp body type player, and I could see Akers, Williams, and Zach Evans being like the main three here. Maybe they keep Ronnie Rivers too as a fourth.
Yep, top three guys for me, and those are the only ones, both formats, that I'm interested in. So it's Akers, Kyron, Zach Evans, Royce Freeman. Maybe they just signed him so he can retire too. Like, that's what it's going to be. You're going to have all these crappy running backs just sign with the Rams so they can retire. Maybe they get a tax benefit or something if that happens.
Right, that's great. All right, on to San Francisco. Very intriguing backfield. So Christian McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell, Jordan Mason, Tyrion Davis-Price. I think those are going to be the four that they keep. And obviously they always have somebody else who emerges. So they signed Jeremy McNichols. No thanks on that one. And then Kalen LeBourne, that was a guy that Scott really liked. I haven't heard much on him, but it's a guy I'm going to watch in the preseason that maybe they keep 5 running backs and LeBourne could be that 5th guy. But McCaffrey, Mitchell, who's already banged up too, Mason and TDP have both looked awesome in preseason. So I'm very intrigued by all 4 of these main top guys.
So McCaffrey for sure, Elijah Mitchell, yes, Jordan Mason, yes for me. TDP was a guy that I'm very high on. And I will say in my best ball leagues, he's one of those guys that is on the thread or the cusp. Like, I have a lot of them in best ball leagues, but with the emergence, especially of Jordan Mason, I haven't heard, me personally, Eric, so I'm going to have to get with you to get back on this TDP hype train. But I haven't heard a lot about TDP. I've heard a lot of good things about Jordan Mason, so TDP's been really on that threshold of me going, all right, your ass might be gone here pretty soon. But if he's doing well, yes, keep him on, because I think this is a backfield that I'm highly intrigued in. Lineup league, I will throw LeBourne in there as a guy like taxi squad stash, like kind of deep bench that I'm monitoring in lineup leagues. In best ball, no. Like, once you get to 4 deep, it's like, can't do anymore. We're capped out, boys.
Right. No, he's actually done pretty good. He lost 15 pounds, so he went from like 228, I think he was at, down to like 217, something like that, 215. He's got faster, leaner, all that good stuff. So, yeah, Shanahan was talking him up too, so it's been pretty good so far.
Nice. I'm back in, man. Just when I thought I was out.
Right.
They pull me back in.
And then let's see here. The last one is going to be
the entire room is injured.
yes, the Seahawks. So
if they're on the team, they're hurt.
right. Yeah, so Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet, both leagues, you're keeping them. DJ Dallas is like really the only healthy one right now, and he's been there since 2020, so they obviously like him. They re-signed him, or no, he is still on his rookie deal. So I still like DJ Dallas. Lineup league probably best ball. He's on the borderline. Kenny McIntosh, he just got hurt, sprained his ankle, might be out a couple weeks. This is his time to shine with those two guys hurt. But Charbonnet obviously came back, so he's been doing good. But McIntosh hurt that ankle. But everything that I read on McIntosh, he was doing good before then, so I'm not too worried about him. I think those are the only four guys that I want. So Roderick Thompson, Bryant Koback, those are the only guys that I really know of that are behind them that I'm not too interested in either of them. Koback was a guy that Scott really liked from Toledo last year, high spark athlete type player. So Roderick Thompson is not very good, so I think see him getting cut. But what are your thoughts on like the main four of Seattle here?
I want the two Kennys. Kenny Walker, Kenny McIntosh, and I want Zach Charbonnet in best ball leagues, and those are the only guys I will touch. I will not do the DJ Dallas thing unless, we start to get some more clarity about what the hell these injuries actually are. How long these guys are going to be out. Lineup leagues, I think I could throw DJ Dallas in there, right? Just kind of as the stash for that point. But none of the other dudes. No Sir Roderick Thompson for me. No Bryant Koback or Wayne Tilapia. I don't even know what his actual real name is. I just saw it and I was like, oh, that sounds like the fish. I like when I look at these deep rosters at some of these running backs, Eric, because we follow so many damn players, right? We do fantasy football. We do campus to Canton leagues. We're deep in it. And there's always like one or two guys that pop up on these depth charts. I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? I've never heard of this guy before. So those are the ones. DJ Dallas, yes, in lineup, no in best ball for me. Put yourself on mute.
My first time doing that. Damn.
That's all right. It took 2 episodes, and we're damn near done with this one. So you can't right. complain too much. I'll take that one.
Oh, too funny. But yeah, that's it for our little cruise around looking at the running backs. Still waiting on Fournette and Zeke where they're going to sign. Those are going to be interesting spots. I think one I forgot to mention was Zeke to the Chargers could be a possibility because he knows Kellen Moore. Yeah. So that was kind of my little thought there. I've heard maybe Fournette to Vegas as well. So that was another one I forgot to bring up.
I can see that.
With Jacobs doing his bullshit right now. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see these running back depth charts, how they play out. I want to see a lot of these guys play over the next couple weeks in the preseason game, see how they work, see how they look. You could definitely tell a lot. That's how I found Jaylen Warren. I found Phillip Lindsay. I found Malik Davis. Just kind of watching these guys in the preseason games and how they looked. And if they look like an NFL runner here, their burst looks good. They're getting to the edge. They're making good plays. They're not doing stupid shit. You can find some good gems. So it takes a little bit of time to watch some of these guys and just kind of watch the games a little bit and see how they play. But you can definitely pick it up a lot from there and definitely help the back end of your rosters in some of our deeper leagues. So
I know we always joke about like, oh, this guy's a turd. This guy sucks. This guy, whatever. But if they come out in the preseason like you're talking, Eric, and they actually start doing something and they look good, even if you miss on a Tony Jones, which we shit all over, right? Once you actually got to see him in real NFL games, didn't look as good. For every one of those guys you missed, man, you only need to hit one James Robinson or Elijah Mitchell. Remember that year?
Yep.
You hit one of these guys and you've quadrupled, 5-tupled, 10 times to 100 times, whatever the hell it is, on all the misses that you made, and you're going to make all that back. So that's really important at the running back position. Now, these wide receivers that we see, I know we talked and we ended the last podcast talking about Victor Cruz. Not very often that one of these wide receivers comes out of nowhere and actually does some shit, but running backs happens all the time.
Yeah, for sure. It takes a little bit, but Yeah, the wide receivers is really hard to really crack that roster. I mean, you have to be really good. Like we've had some in the past that have done it, and they get to the NFL season, and you got Sauce Gardner and all these other guys, Patrick Surtain covering them, and they just get shut down. So yeah,
they're not going really up against 4th, 5th, 6th string corners or guys who not even going to make the practice squad.
Yeah, they're being selling insurance the next week. So
yes.
Right. So, all right. Well, that is it for the running back show. You ready to do America's favorite game before we get out of here?
Of course, man. I always thought we should start it with that.
All right. Well, today is when we're recording this is Tuesday before Mike goes to the expo here. So Tuesday the 8th, it is the first episode of Hard Knocks this evening. So my question is, what is your favorite Hard Knocks season? Or favorite memory from Hard Knocks, either way.
My favorite. You already know what my favorite memory from Hard Knocks is.
Yeah, I gotta tell Grandma.
Yeah, the Devontae Davis, gotta call Grandma. It's one of my favorite memory from Hard Knocks. Not for Vontae or his grandma, but one of the most memorable. Favorite season? I really did enjoy the Gruden Raiders season. Like there was so much drama going on with the Antonio Brown thing back and forth, and the whole, knock on wood if you're with me.
Yeah,
that whole thing. Gruden is highly entertaining, man, and he really made that season. And you got to see the whole trip of Derek Carr just trying to suck up and trying to get John Gruden's love the whole time too. Like that kid in class trying to be teacher's pet. Right. And John Gruden wasn't having any of it.
Yeah.
He had more love for Mike Lennon at the time, Mr. Longneck, than did for Derek Carr. But that was probably my favorite one to watch. How about you?
So obviously they've done a Cleveland Browns one. That one was decent. Like I was glad that they did my team. It was, to do all that. I didn't think it was like spectacular. It was okay. But my favorite is definitely the Rex Ryan Jet season.
Oh, yes.
Rex Ryan was absolutely hilarious. Let's get a goddamn snack. I always remember that.
Was that before or after he got into feet picks?
I don't remember. To be honest, I forget where that was from, but I think they were coming off of one of their AFC Championship game appearances. It was definitely during the Darrelle Revis contract stuff because he was holding on to the whole camp, and that was a big part of it.
Danny Woodhead got cut that one too, and then went on to have great success in New England.
Yep, Danny Woodhead got cut. Obviously, Mark Sanchez was the quarterback. That was just a really fun one, man. Just Rex Ryan made that whole series just like him talking to the coaches, talking with the players and stuff, like the behind the scenes stuff of Rex Ryan. He was absolutely hilarious. Trying to think of like some other good memories that I've had from there.
I'm gonna have to figure out too. Like they were in the middle of that string of AFC championships. How the hell did Hard Knocks get them on, or did they not have the rules yet?
I don't think they had the rules yet. Yeah, I think it was teams volunteered and they volunteered.
Gotcha. Now you got to force them.
Yeah, now you have to force them. I love the Chad Johnson Bengals season one that they did too.
Yep.
With the child please. And that was the year they drafted Andre Smith, and they made fun of Andre Smith's fucking workout video when he did it with his shirt off. Yeah. Oh my God, that was hilarious.
Big old roly-poly offensive lineman, right? From Alabama. Yep, that guy.
The original Baltimore Ravens one is awesome too, where Shannon Sharp and Sarah Goose are just going at each other the whole time.
Well, they had the rookies right for the talent show for that one come in and make fun of Shannon Sharp.
Yeah, he did that.
Do the impression.
I want the restitution. I need restitution.
Want the restitution? Yes.
All that. Man, those ones were always good. I remember the one year on the Rams when Jeff Fisher was the coach, and he cut the dude for bringing his girl into camp and having sex with her and stuff.
She was just visiting.
She was just visiting.
He wasn't gonna stay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, sorry, I gotta cut you.
Poor guy.
Yeah. Some of those cut scenes are definitely brutal too, man. Like just seeing that. So I could see why people don't like having that on TV and stuff, man. Just all the cuts, but yeah, definitely some good Hard Knocks memories. I do like the show quite a bit. But yeah, I would say Rex Ryan and the Jets, definitely my favorite one.
Yeah, I always got into the Hard Knocks just because there's nothing else going on. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's you're so depraved of football that you'll take anything you got. And I think that's also why I've never really gotten into the in-season Hard Knocks. You know, they've done the Cardinals
Yeah.
and they've done the Colts now, and I never really got into it just because you go, like I already got it. I already got football.
I remember All or Nothing. Do you remember that on Amazon?
Yeah, they did the one with the Eagles. I got into that one, but that was the Eagles
one was really good. They did a Cowboys one that was really good. They did a Cardinals one that was really good. The Cardinals one I enjoyed a lot.
They did one with Michigan too. They followed hard.
Yeah, they did a Michigan one. They did a Formula One one. They did a Toronto Maple Leafs. They did soccer one. So yeah, they don't do those anymore, which sucked. But yeah, those ones were definitely some good ones. I'm excited to see Aaron Rodgers on this one for sure. See how that goes. So.
All right, first episode tonight. I got too many mind warps to watch, but we'll definitely get it on one of these trips here.
There you go. Make sure Adam records it so you can watch it at his house.
That's right, buddy. No, I love it. I think too. You just speaking of it, like I got to buy a subscription to HBO, or now it's Max, whatever that is, right? So you can watch it. And it's a yearly tradition where I re-up my subscription to. I don't have it all summer because I don't give a shit. I'm doing other things, and then Hard Knocks comes, I get it. But one of the other things is I think the second season of Showtime or Winning Time, the Los Angeles Lakers series that they did, is coming out here shortly too. So I'll be binge watching the shit out of that too.
Nice. There you go. Yeah, I never got into that one. I didn't have HBO at the time, but
well, now that you're gonna get it to watch Hard Knocks, you get some free time. Watch the first season of it. It is very, very good. Jerry West, I see why he almost tried to sue him, or is in the process of suing him, because he's not portrayed very well.
Oh, geez. Okay, definitely. I'll definitely check it out. But yeah, until next week for episode 3, I am your host, Eric Vanek, and you can find me on Twitter at Eric Vanek NFL. And you can follow the podcast at America's Game Pod on Twitter as well. Make sure you guys, if you want to watch this in podcast format every week, South Harmon FF on YouTube. Make sure you check that out. It'll be posted on Thursday evenings once Adam gets all the editing done and all that. South Harmon website, make sure you guys check that out. SouthHarmonFF.com. The Mind Warp series is there. Koopa's Warp tool is there. Great stuff. Highly recommend it for your leagues. It's going to make you a better fantasy football player, better dynasty fantasy football player. So make sure you guys check both of those out. And then, Mike, go ahead, close it out with anything you got, man.
There's so much happening on the website. We're going to have articles soon. We're going to have a few people that like to write. Eric's going to be doing some stuff over there. We also got that sleepier. I know it's not for MFL, but for all your sleeper league management. So as we're talking about all these running backs in here, you can go in and plug in your team name.
Mm-hmm.
It'll pull up everything you got on the sleeper, how many shares you have of them, where they're at, if you needed to cut or if you wanted to go and see if you can sneak some that were on waivers. Perfect thing to do. It's getting crazy, and the fact that we are going to have the expo here, I'm going to be leaving here in about an hour and a half and then driving to the airport, and it's just going to get even more ridiculous, and I'm very excited on where this is going. We got Eric aboard now, and the outreach has been fantastic. South Harmon's ready for liftoff, man, and Eric, I'm glad you're a part of it, buddy. Me too. Awesome. We need that third musketeer. You can be D'Artagnan if you want. I don't give a shit. I'll be whoever the hell the other French guys are.
Yeah, I'm excited for it, man. It's been awesome. The reactions that everybody's had has been awesome so far, so I'm looking forward to it. And if you're at the expo, have fun, man. Be safe. Have a good time. There's going to be a lot of good people there, a lot of good content, a lot of just good people, man. I know Scott and Dynasty Trades and 5 got their own little panel thing they're doing, so that'll be pretty cool. So hopefully you guys check that out too. Check out, obviously, Adam and Mike. They're going to be there. They're probably going to be the drunk guys.
You'll be able to find me.
You'll be able to find them. Just follow the vodka smell.
Yes.
The bourbon or whatever.
Just follow the trail of vodka lemonades, and whatever Adam's drinking, Sazerac Rye, whatever bourbon he's on. Just follow that trail and you'll lead us right to it. You can't miss us. I'm a giant fat guy and Adam's like 6'4". So we stand out as the odd couple.
Hell yeah. All right, well, you guys enjoy it. Had fun here on episode 2. We'll be back next week for episode 3.
Hell yeah. See you, everybody.
See ya.